Oh, fuck. Why do I do that every Good morning, Vietnam. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. This is the morning edition. I think we want to start off today talking about some tragic news. Ultimately and horribly, Robin Williams has passed away. And this is one of the first celebrities that passed away. I think Paul Walker was one of them that...
True.
People were sad about, and it seemed like it was a legit sadness and not a weird fakeness. But I think this is one of the first ones where I was just like, man, you actually felt it, you know?
Yeah, I remember I was actually at the warehouse working on the rollers, and I saw that text from you, and I thought you were playing around with me.
Yeah.
So I literally go over to the computer, turn it on, tell my dad about it. We type in Robin Williams, and then they do a little news segment clip on what's currently happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, it actually struck me. I actually felt a little wind of sadness, a little wind of, someone great has now moved on.
Yeah. And it's weird because I think why so many people are sad about this death is because he was like tortured by, he had tons of problems with depression. I had heard years ago that he had bipolar disorder, and that it would be so bad that while filming he would have to go to his trailer and like just deal with it. Like he would, try to film, and then he would have to literally leave the set and just go be alone because he was just having such a hard time dealing with this, bipolar disorder. And it's sad, man, because I think that's why. Because he was honestly such a great guy, It's crazy how you hear so many stories of all these amazing things that he did, and how he touched so many people positively. And I think that's one of the reasons why he's going to be missed so much. And
yeah, no, I agree. And the fact of the matter is he's funny as all hell. I mean, all the movies. And the funny thing is, throughout this whole week, they keep on... capturing all the films he's been, all the shows he's been, all the comedy he's been. And, I mean, this guy was pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that when I was younger, I really didn't know him. Therefore, I didn't really get to see the shows he was in. But it was pretty fascinating. But at the same token, I feel like there's a lot of people that are so good at what they do that they all deal with something.
Yeah.
Like either depression, which I think that also leads to a lot of drug abuse because, you want to always alter your state of mind so you don't feel the depression.
Yeah.
And then for the rest of your life, it's almost like an uphill battle trying to regain strength of your own life. And then I feel like sometimes you hit these lows that really get you low. I know on the news they were talking that when he had his first kid, he goes, this is my opportunity to change. And he sobered up, cleaned up. But it's sad. I mean, 63 is still very young. Wasn't he in the middle of filming the second Miss Doubtfire?
Was he really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Or they were about to, something like that. They were about to do a sequel to it.
Wow. I know he's filming a show, The Lost Ones, The Angry Ones, something The Ones.
Yeah, I don't know the name, but they were mentioning.
Wow, that's crazy. There is always a weird thing when you see someone who's excelled so much in a certain category of success in a lot of art, and you hear it and it's become cliche, like the tortured artist. And when you hear that, oh, I'm a tortured artist, people try to even pretend they're like that when they're in music, whether they're an actor. The people who are like, I don't read the script reads me. Those kind of people who, I don't believe my character would say this. Like the people who want to be that person. But a lot of it's bullshit, but there's that 1% out there that really is that tortured person. And I think Robin Williams is one of those people who he handled it in such a great way, in the sense of he didn't hurt anybody. He didn't take the rage out on anybody. Like, he was such a kind person that he basically jumped on a grenade. He was dealing with so much stuff and wasn't telling anyone. It wasn't, well, he had publicly been dealing with, addiction and everything like that.
Yeah.
But he basically, all those demons he was fighting by himself. All because he was such a good person that he didn't want to burden anybody. He didn't want to, make anybody worry about him. He didn't want to take out his anger on anyone. And I think that's why people are so sad about it, because they see that and they're like, man, but I wish, everybody, it seems like everybody now, there's always, a silver lining, and it's that people are seeing how serious depression is and how serious suicide prevention is. And who knows if someone, I always think about stuff like that in tragic situations. If someone could have just went back in time a day before and told him, look, don't do this, they stayed with him, they didn't allow him to be by himself. Could he have been fixed if people knew what he was going to do? If he had not succeeded and somebody found him, they took him to the hospital, would he have changed the way? Would it have woken him up and made him see, or would it have just been too late? I mean, I always think about, Eminem, who's probably my most favorite music artist of all time. He almost killed himself in an accident overdose. And the crazy thing about that is he snapped out of it. He had crazy addiction problems, and he's another one that has succeeded so much in art and on a different playing field than Robin Williams, but kind of in the same category of just being so amazing in their field. But he actually was able to pull himself out of it. So you never know if you get to people in the right time, or if they're lucky, if you're gonna be able to change them.
Yeah, I think that everyone has that rock bottom. And either that rock bottom is death, or the rock bottom, like you said, Eminem, being able to pick yourself up
and lose yourself in the moment.
Yeah, I think it's a great time for everybody to sit down and reflect back on how A, precious life is, and then also B, what direction are you going? If you're also battling a little bit of depression, or if you're down because something just happened, whatever the scenario that's currently happening in your life, I think it's a perfect way to reflect and actually almost be glad that you're alive. Be glad that you have people around you that care for you, love for you. And it's almost like it's a constant reminder for you to just view where your strategy in life is. Sorry about that. To figure out, are you going in the direction you want to? Are you putting enough energy into the things that you want to do? So, I sat there and I reflected a lot the rest of the day working, saying, what am I doing right now? And I go, I'm right now sort of in between those stages of, working my ass off, but sometimes I feel like I'm floating around. I don't really have a lot of focus because I'm constantly tired, doing this, doing that. That it almost jump-started this new, like AED, just basically a little jolt of energy. And it woke me up, and I go, you know what? I've always wanted to do photography just for hobby. So then guess what? I got this wild hair, and one morning I started searching. And remember, I kept on sending you a bunch of...
Was that all in one day whim?
Yeah. That was literally, I woke up, and I was like, I've always wanted to do photography. I need to do it right now, as far as commit to buy a camera so I can start. Because probably for 5+ years I've wanted to do it.
Wow.
But the fact of the matter is I have so many other projects that I'm working on that I divert all my attention and money into. I have the money to set aside for the camera, but I would always tell myself, not yet. So again, this was that time when I was like, you know what? My goal has always been photography in the sense of capturing landscape. For some reason, I think that that's so cool to be able to almost decorate your own house with some cool art
That you
photos
took.
that
Yeah.
you did, so that, when people come over, you have a story to tell. And let's say you get bored of one, you get another picture, you replace it, and it's always like that constant slideshow of your life and the things that make you happy. And I'm a big fan of the outdoors. I bike and run down PCH a lot, so I always get caught up staring out in the abyss. And now it's like my time to go out there and actually capture all those images that I wanted to.
That's awesome. I think that you nailed it. The idea that when people want to do something for years, it's crazy that, reevaluating life and, this whole thing with Robin Williams happening kind of jump-started something in you to make you realize. And a lot of times that's the sad thing about, tragic loss like that, is that it really does, it's the silver lining in tragedy that really makes other people appreciate. It makes people realize, shit, I gotta do what I love now. I only have one life. I have to use it the way I want to use it. That's, I think that's a big thing that people kind of go away from, is they kind of go through the motion not realizing that life is so short. I think we've heard it since we were kids. Life is short. You've heard that quote said to you so much that it goes in one ear and out the other now. But it's really so true that life is so short, because usually in a regular life, you're just going through the motions. You get, you graduate school, you get a job, you meet a girl, you have kids, you raise your kids, they go to college, then, you meet your grandkids, and then you die.
Yeah.
That's it. That's kind of, and it's kind of like a lot of times you're sitting there waiting, you're always kind of waiting for the next thing. You're always kind of, I'll do that next week. You keep putting everything off until, I don't like the idea when people say, oh, you put in your work and then you enjoy your retirement. Who the fuck is going to enjoy their retirement? No offense to anyone that has that plan or is in the retirement now. But what, you graduate college, you get a job, you work for, 30 years, 40 years? Probably 30 years, right?
Well, right now the average, 65 years old?
Is
and
retirement?
They're projecting that it's going to bump up to 74 pretty soon.
People working till they're 74?
As far as to be able to cash in on their retirement.
That's ridiculous.
And that, obviously we're talking about regular jobs in the sense of if you got a special degree that, you're making over $100,000, then you can retire earlier, because if you're smart, you can, divert a lot of your income to your own savings account. But we're just talking about cashing in on your Social Security and 401k that your job offers.
Yeah.
Those are the projected amounts. That's why nowadays you have to create your own wealth if you want to retire early, or if you want to be financially stable.
Yeah.
You just have to.
Yeah, and it's what I'm getting at is that people are always waiting for something, another reason. Dude, I've been guilty of it too. When you can't do what you want to do because you're waiting for something, like, oh, I've done it even with microphones when I'm recording, where I'm like, I really should start working on this album or blah, blah, blah. And I don't do it because let me just wait till I get this new microphone that I've been saving up for, because then once I have that new microphone, it's going to sound a lot better. It'll be high quality. Yeah, I'll just put it off until this happens,
Correct.
And I think that's what, maybe you've been doing with photography, but the important thing is people actually taking the action to do what they want to do. Whether the reason is, because your reason is probably a lot smarter than mine, why you put off photography, probably because you're business savvy. Me, I'm just, I don't know, you give in to resistance and that little voice in your head that's just, no, don't do it right now. You want to wait on that. So I think it's important. If anybody's watching this, if anybody, like we're the last people on civilization, aliens took over, if anybody's watching this right now, do what you want to do. Don't wait another week. Don't wait another month. Don't wait till you're financially set. I'm probably giving out horrible advice right now to people. But really, do whatever you want to do, because life is so short. It's over so fast. And you hear older people say that all the time, That's why when you look at older people sometimes, you look at them not even picturing what they were when they were younger, not realizing that they were just like us, you know.
Young whippersnappers.
Yeah, and they always say, oh, life goes by so quick, you know. You never hear old people be like, man, this shit needs to be over. Shit
Life
done
is
yet?
going by slow.
Yeah, you never hear that. So it's short, do what you want, and have fun.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, obviously, let's take that whole mentality, you know, do things that you always want to do, have fun with it. I think there's a lot of common sense in there. So obviously, if you're focused on success, if you're focused on being driven, if you're focused on, you know, tackling something you've always wanted to tackle, on the sides, you should be able to do things that, you know, are fun, that sort of divert your attention so that your brain can rest from all the hard work you've been putting into. And also, I think that tapping into other sort of sectors of the world, and when I say sectors, it's like, for me, photography would be more of the creative side, artsy side, which I don't really have one. So I feel like that would be cool because it almost challenged me in that way. So then I can build my brain as far as it's almost like my body. If I keep working my biceps, I'm going to have great biceps. But as soon as I flex my triceps, they're going to look a little disproportionate. They're not going to be well balanced. So it's almost like that same thing is I want to keep challenging my own self. So I want to do photography because photography is just beautiful. You capture, you know, pictures. And I think that when you take a picture, the person can almost pretty much retell the story about you taking the picture. Because I feel like there's a lot of words that come to pictures. But the fact of the matter is, I think it would be fun to hike to a certain location, take great pictures, you know, get wet, trying to, you know, take certain pictures as far as in the water.
Oh. We got a kids podcast here.
So it's almost like the act of the adventure. And, you know, from now on, carrying this camera throughout life to capture all those moments, because I definitely do think that it would be fun to see everything when you grow old and to basically be able to have a big smile on your face and say, I don't regret everything that I've done. You know, maybe I didn't make some of the right decisions. I wasn't smart. But at the end of the day, I did everything that I wanted to do, if not more. So with that, I think that I would be able to lay peacefully on my deathbed and literally just have
evaporate and just go into the universe. Just little gold pixies of M80 rollers. Just
because I definitely do think that there's a percentage of old people out there that are still miserable.
Do you think that's why there's that stereotypical get off my lawn, you know, old
Yeah,
man?
it's almost like that angry old person. I think that...
So old people are haters?
I think so. I think that they've been haters, and maybe they feel like life is unfair because they weren't given the cards that they wanted. But it goes back to life doesn't give you anything. You have to go look for stuff.
In their defense, I think the world was a lot different back then. I know there's still old people that grew up in a depression. Like, that shit's
That's
crazy.
true.
So I think sometimes, I think part of the reason why old people get mad at young people and think that we have no work ethic is because they grew up in such a crazy time of getting beat. And, you know, that's why I just think with life in general, it takes so many times, so many cycles to get things right. And I think, of course, I think our grandparents' generation got beat a lot, very strict. Dude, think about what women used to have to wear, like what they consider risque now compared to what was risque back then. It's just crazy. My grandma still has that mentality sometimes. Shout out to grandma. She photoshopped. There's a picture of her at the Elks Lodge. Shout out to the Elks Lodge. A lady over there, and she photoshopped. She was wearing a dress that went to here, didn't cover her knees. My grandma photoshopped a dress.
Really?
On the lady because it was just a short dress.
Yeah.
So there's like a generation thing where it's completely different. And I think Imagine if you were a monkey in a cage. Shout out to my dog.
That actually, I thought it was a monkey.
Yeah, we have sound effects in the show now. Cue the gorillas. If you're a monkey in the cage and you're seeing a monkey right outside the cage just throwing bananas in the trash, just peeling them and throwing them away, lighting them on fire, letting them go, swinging from tree to tree, you'd be pissed. You'd be like, why the hell? I had to be in this cage my whole life. Why is that little monkey out there just playing? You know? I think that's a big thing that the generation gaps see, and they have that bitterness is, you know. But then again, yeah, like you said, you got to play the cards you're dealt. And though, you know, times were different, there still was a lot of opportunity. There still was just as many people that were hating their life and bitter. There's still just so many of those people who took that big chance and were living out their dreams, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that, like you said, I guess you have to be complex in the sense of taking in outside factors. So obviously people that grew up in the Great Depression, I mean, I can't imagine having to grow up having to ration things or having to sometimes go at night, you know, barely eating something. I don't know, that lifestyle, I mean, I think it carries with you for the rest of your life because you cherish and you see how precious things are. And nowadays, we're a perfect example that nothing is precious as far as materialistic goods. I mean, everything is meant to be disposed now. I mean, phones are, you know, every 2 years you're meant to dispose of them. It's just, I think it's crazy. And I think we're soon starting to realize that that also is bad, just because it creates obviously a lot of trash. It creates a lot of hazard waste. And we're slowly starting coming back to the whole sustainability, being aware of our surroundings and our actions and our carbon footprint. But again, life is a matter of doing, learning, experiencing, and finding a conclusion. And I think that if you have that mindset, you set yourself up for success because we're not born with all the tools we need. We learn them. Our parents are great, but you can't expect them to also teach you everything. Yeah. Because it's impossible. They would have to be with you every second of every day till you're 50 to teach you the things that they know.
And that'd be really limited. Like, you know, I was homeschooled from first to fourth, and then I went to school for half a year in fourth grade. Got in way too many fights because I was a weird kid. And then was homeschooled again from fifth to eighth, and then went to high school. So I think homeschool kids, you know, we were raised with a swim team and everything like that. So we came out kind of normal and had friends. But an example of that, of expecting your parents to teach you everything, is a homeschool kid. If there's one group of people that are socially awkward, it's homeschool people. If, you know, there's like a cliche thing that comes with homeschool people now is how, you know, sheltered they are because they're getting the views of one set of people who are not only giving them their views, it's completely biased, it's completely sheltered, manipulated the way they want you to see the world, how you're supposed to be. And then you go out into the world and it's like, oh shit, this world doesn't work like this, you know? That's why I think sometimes the private schools, there's a private school in Las Vegas that makes kids walk on these lines all through the school every day, you know? Everywhere they walk, it has to be in this line. The fucking world isn't a straight line, you know? You don't go to a grocery store and like that because you're going to go to Times Square and be like, what is this? People
Too much chaos.
Yeah. So the statement I'm trying to make is it takes a village to raise a child, you know? It takes world experience to really become well-rounded. So it's important for that, you know, for people to develop their skills and take time to develop their skills in the real world, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that there's a lot of pros and cons to homeschool, and I think that if you do homeschool, you have to be aware of the social aspect. But the same thing goes for public school. I mean, public school has a lot of pros and cons as well.
That's true.
You know, I think that one of the cons is that you, depending on who you are, you take on personalities of people around you, which might be good, might be bad.
Yeah.
So I think that in order to, look at school, it's almost, again, it goes back to the parents being able to go, okay, is my kid going to public school? Okay, we know that, they're going to be surrounded with this. So our goal is to establish good moral values, ethics, all those things to keep him strong or her strong, that, don't be easily persuaded. Stick to your guns. Obviously, there's certain times that you have to, voice them, and there's other times you don't really have to voice them. And I think that that's also, there's a lot of parents nowadays that they think they're the smartest people, therefore they're going to raise the smartest kids, and they're like, oh, why would Timmy need to know this? He can make his own educated guess, or he can make his own actions. And you're sitting there going, he's 6 years old. What do you mean?
Yeah.
He's not smart enough.
Yeah.
Why is he dependent on you?
It's crazy. There always seems to be, that's something that's really fascinating to me, is there's always a gap between, like, it almost skips a generation when there's the success. Like, if you look at so many successful music artists, celebrities, whatever, politicians, producers, directors, whatever it is, someone, you always hear about the crazy CEO son who's just a washed up piece of shit who just does drugs and drives a Ferrari.
Yeah.
They feel like the world is their oyster because their parents put in all this work, because, the CEO, he came from nothing, working 20 hours a day, getting 4 hours of sleep, blah, 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 for months and years, and built this, billion-dollar corporation. But then his son never had to work for anything. And I think hard work and being able to run something that isn't a mindset. I think it's a muscle that you have to work years and years and years to develop, Some trust fund kid is not going to be able to come in and just be able to do it. That's why I always, and I don't know, I feel like they're not accepted really. There's, Run DMC is one of the pioneers of hip hop and changed so much with it. Then they have their son, Diggy Simmons, who is, I don't know if you ever saw the show Run's House. It was an MTV reality show.
I think I saw just previews.
Ricka Run's House.
Because Run's a...
Run DMC. He's a reverend also.
A reverend, there you go.
Yeah, but he worked hard. He's a crazy hip-hop artist.
The funny thing that you mentioned, that probably a couple years when I was on Instagram, I started following all these people, and they took that shirt, Run DMC, and now everyone and their mother. I've even seen people now in Huntington Beach, and they'll say, like, Run, and it'll say something underneath it, but it's all towards, like, exercise. That is pretty cool, I think.
Are you saying that there needs to be a Run Dos Leos? Sure. Is that what you're getting at?
I think we should.
We should do that.
Run Dos Leos. And then do the same format, Run with the red lines.
Can we do that? Is there copyright infringement?
No, because, we'll look at it, but I think that as long as you change it by a certain percentage, it's legal. I want to say you can keep Run, because the word Run is by itself can't be taken up. It's probably Run DMC. Or maybe they don't even have anything associated with that.
Huh, because I have seen a lot of shirts, different things.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know, I found that funny when you said Run DMC, because lately that's all I've been seeing.
What I was going to say about the Run DMC, his son in the show Run's House, for most of the seasons, I watched it, whatever, he was this little spoiled kid that would sit on his bed with a laptop every day and whine, and he was just the whiniest little kid. Always had, the craziest clothes, and, everything was given to them. And then now the son is trying to have a legit hip-hop career and is, like, walking around like he's royalty, and, like, yeah, he's recorded albums and everything like that, but he's got all those connections. He's worked with Pharrell. He has all these people just who his dad is. You know? And it's weird because even though he's good at rhyming, he can rhyme, there's no real struggle. There's no real, I don't want to say art, but it's like there's no substance because you didn't fight for anything. You didn't have to accomplish anything hard. There was nothing, there was never that, am I going to make it? Am I not? Am I going to be able to eat? What am I doing? Because no matter what, you're going to be a millionaire the rest of your life because of who your dad is. And the same thing goes for, there's Willow and Jaden Smith, who are Will Smith's kids.
Yeah.
They're featuring, they I don't know, one of them got a deal with Jay-Z.
Really?
Yeah. Just based off, I think it was Willow who they did that song with. I whip my hair back and forth, whip my hair back and forth. It was like a big hit song.
Really?
And she's a little kid, but everything is because of the parents. And dude, if you read, there's articles on Jaden Smith's Twitter posts. He's such a retard, man.
Really?
Yeah, and no offense to special people when I say retard. Let's clear this up in the third episode.
Yeah.
Or second episode. When you hear retard, fag, bitch, whatever on here, we do not mean the literal sense of that. Disclaimer.
Just slang.
Podcast back in. When you start getting so much success and fame based off of who your dad is and you didn't put the real work in, you start thinking you're a prince. That everything is yours when it's given to you, and you just automatically start seeing that you're better. You think that you're better than everybody based off of, just being you.
I guess it goes back to you're expecting, because when you look up to your parents and then your parents have those strings and they pull it, after once or twice, click, that's my go-to.
Yeah.
My mom or my dad, because they're going to pull those strings. But going back to what you were talking about is the reason why people are successful as far as being driven and they don't never quit, they keep trying. It goes back to struggle. Very, very one-sided struggle or a little bit of struggle, but there's always something there that you don't have everything that you've ever wanted. So with that, you get this hunger. And I always say hunger because it's literally like when you're hungry, are you just going to sit there and wither away? Or are you going to go out and hunt food?
Yeah.
And the way that I view it is every time I'm hungry, I always have to get food. It's nothing that I can just go, I'll just eat in a couple more hours. I literally, when I'm hungry, I feel like a primal human that needs to immediately just devour something. So that's the same thing with life, is that I'm very passionate at what I do, but the reason that I'm passionate is because I see my whole timeline and everything that my parents have done for me, and there's always been struggle. There's always been, hard work. There's always been accomplishment. There's always been success, and everything has gotten better. And I mean, we're in a great spot. But now it's almost like my time to step in, now that I'm an adult, and continue that legacy. Instead of just being a kid, like you said, like a trust fund kid or whatever you want to call a kid, that goes, I'm settled, I'm fine, this. I don't, because I sit there and I view my parents, and my dad got laid off a couple of years ago, and the first thing I remember, the phone call I get from him, I was rolling up the garage to the Future M80 roller company, and I was prototyping at the time, just prototyping. And I remember as I'm opening the garage door, my dad calls me, and he never calls me at that time during the week because he's always working. And he goes, Mijo, got bad news, got laid off. And I was like, shit. We had a feeling something was going to happen, but I kept on telling my dad, what, keep your head up. You have 2-3 more years till retirement. There's no way that they're going to pull the plug. And then from that day on, a new goal, a new sense of accomplishment entered my life, and that was I am going to start a side business, and I'm going to grow it to hand it over to my dad so that he can take it over, so then we can create financial stability within my parents. Because again, I view it as always paying it forward. So if my parents, did everything they can and they struggled, to give me what I needed, it's almost like I want to pay that back.
Is that you're referring to M80 roller, right? When you say a side business. So what would you do, once you establish M80 roller, what's the next, since it's a side business, what do you want to do?
Well, currently, actually, my parents
Podcast.
are going down. They're moving. We actually found a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment in Costa Mesa, and I'm living there right now. Slowly, they're starting to move there, and I sort of convinced them the last couple of years to finally make the move, and they've seen the success of M80, so they want to help me. But again, I told them is I want my dad to take over the company. I want to completely let it go to him and do what I love to do, which is keep innovating fitness products. Keep innovating stuff that's out there to make them better, have a purpose, more functionality to products. But again, I'm about to sacrifice, who knows, the next 2 to 5 years of my personal life. I'm moving back in with my parents, and to tell you the truth, I'll still do it at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
Because this is my ultimate goal, to help them move on in life, be able to be financially secure. So if they go, you know what, I want to go down to Colombia to visit family, guess what? Next day you jump on the computer, you book your flight. You don't have to sit there and go, well, let's save up for the next year so we can go the following year. Let's say, let's go to Italy. Shit, pack your bags, buy a ticket, go to Italy. Again, I'm just tired of them working, and not being able to enjoy life. So I'm going to put my life on hold and sacrifice everything that I'm doing is to help them, because I have a lot of years ahead of me, and I know that I'm going to be successful in business, but they're in a spot that right now they can't do much. They're stagnant, they're comfortable. So right now my incentive is just to jump in there, clean house, create, pass it on.
Well, I think that's the key thing, and they're blessed to have a son like you that would, be that selfless and ready to sacrifice that for your parents. But I think that's the key in happiness in life, is when you're doing things for the right reasons. A lot of people set the goal as money as the happiness. Instead, what the happiness is what that money can give you through, having that option. My parents don't have to worry about this. I think that's one of my goals with my family, is to be able to retire my dad. And you just want to give that back to your parents, because I think the way we were raised, you worked with my dad, working construction. It's a very physical thing, and I worked years with my dad, and you see that physical struggle of having to do hard labor. It makes you appreciate money. And also, just like your dad working all the years, it makes you appreciate all that hard work they're doing just to provide a life for you, so you can do what you want to do. So I think when you're aware of your surroundings, in the sense of seeing the reasons behind why someone's doing something and making sacrifices. I mean, we were blessed with our parents, because we didn't have parents that were out at the bar every weekend. They weren't, parents who didn't care about what we were doing. They were always involved in our lives. When you see that real investment they made in you for nothing other than just you being their kid, you want to give back to that, and you want to help them. And I think it's the goal, it should be the goal of every kid, to one day be able to pay it forward to their parents, And I think just, I'm always focused on business and trying to figure out how to make extra money, how to do this, automated income, everything, just because what the money brings you. People always say money doesn't buy you happiness, but it buys you, I think, I haven't gotten there, nowhere near it, but financial freedom. When you no longer live worrying about the money, I think it's just like, fuck,
And I think that's when you have to, again, be aware, okay, when I get money, I have to keep focus, because obviously I do think that with money comes greed. But I think that that's when you have to be able to step back and look at yourself and go, what am I going to do with all this money? And I think that a perfect example is, you know, almost like looking back at your life and seeing everything that you've been dealt with. And it doesn't mean that now that you have money, you have to go buy a Lamborghini, you have to go buy a 4,000 square foot house and, show off to everyone that you have money. I think it's almost the opposite. It's like, buy yourself a nice little home, buy yourself a nice little car, almost as a token for you to go, this is the American dream. But then sort of sit
America.
back. What?
America.
Sit back and figure out now, almost like go back to your roots. It's almost like I subscribe to this guy, Seth Godin. Seth, S-E-T-H, Godin, G-O-D-I-N. And my buddy Chris Goodwin, he recommended to me when I first started in my training business. He goes, subscribe to him. He has great insight. He thinks outside the box. Some of the stuff is good, some of it is bad, but it just keeps your brain always working in that sense. And he's just a creative person. And to this day, I read every single email that he blasts. And he probably does once or twice a day. And to tell you the truth, he's changed my life significantly. Wow. Just because it constantly reminds me of what I'm trying to do, which is start my own business, be creative, do things that are scary/fearful, and at the end of the day, being able to go to bed knowing that you tried to create something. Yeah. No matter what it was you were trying to do instead of sitting there talking. So he's been one of my biggest motivators to keep pushing, keep looking at failure in the eyes, and just embrace failure and go, okay, I failed. But guess what? Now I figured out that what my mind thought was right is wrong. But look at this whole area of positive that was left behind. So sooner or later, you're going to fall into success if you keep failing, because you start running out of the avenues. And then that last avenue that no one really made it to, because at that time with so much rejection, so much failure, you crawl up in your ball and you give up.
Yeah.
That other person that never gave up is going to finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. So he's been a huge reminder to myself of what I want to do, what I'm trying to aspire for. So I feel like that's where I would put myself if I did get a lot of money or I was financially stable, is then I would engulf myself with things to keep me well balanced, keep my feet on earth, in the sense that I don't really care what my neighbor drives. I don't care what my neighbor wears. It's almost like I like to help people. Okay, let's volunteer. Let's see what avenue I can take. What if I later on want to start a nonprofit that is dedicated to helping people?
Yeah.
I think that those are things that you never know, but it's worth tapping into, because worst case scenario, you go and you donate, 40 hours of your time, you spread out through a month or two, and you figure out, this isn't it. Now you can say, guess what, this isn't it, instead of constantly thinking over and over what you want to do.
Yeah.
So I think that just like everything in life, there's stages. And just because you hit your success point of financial stability doesn't mean that you have come to your last stage. And I feel like a lot of people view that as the last stage, because from there, what else do you do? Now you get caught up in this vicious circle of wanting more, wanting bigger, and getting that adrenaline rush of keep trying to climb. But the fact of the matter is, then I feel like once you hit financial stability, and whatever financial stability is for you, that's what it is then you have to now sit down and go, what is my next chapter in life? And I feel like the people that don't see another chapter get stuck in that rut of money, power, greed, all those things. But if you can sit there and go, okay, now I have money, now I want to do something.
What is the All of that is amazing. But what is the one guilty thing you would buy that you've always wanted to buy? That
With money?
Yeah.
It's a good question.
I'll tell you mine right now. Shark Tank. I'm getting the biggest aquarium. People know me. They know I like betas. I'm not afraid to post a picture on Instagram of my beta. I think I will get a Shark Tank. The biggest Shark Tank where you walk in and you just see that bitch just fucking, I don't care. I'll go to the black market.
Fucking great white.
I've thought about that. But the thing is, great whites can't live in captivity.
Really?
Isn't that weird? It's something they haven't really figured it out, but they've only been able to keep one in captivity for a certain amount of time. And it was in Monterey Bay Aquarium. And I could be making this up right now, but I'm pretty sure that's the scenario, is that you can't keep them in. They don't live. They die in captivity.
They just have to keep
moving. I think they can keep moving in the tank, but I think it's something that maybe because they're, nomadic by nature, that they just need to change their scenery. Maybe the Rolling Stones kind of, they just need to get out there and explore the world.
Or what if, I'm assuming that then if you're like that, what if you get depressed?
Well, I think that's what kills them.
I
think that's what kills them, is that they get depressed, the lifestyle of being in a tank. They just can't handle it. Most animals get depressed in cages. That's why I never went to it, but when I lived in Puerto Rico, there was a zoo in Puerto Rico.
Really?
And people knew what animals they had just because, Puerto Rico's kind of small. You can drive from one side to the other in like 3 or 4 hours.
Uh-huh.
So they had a zoo. There was a rhino in there.
Really?
There was all these things. But the rhino cage, I guess it was only big enough for the rhino to like just walk forward a couple feet, walk back, and I don't even know if it could turn around.
Jeez.
And I never went to it because I was like, that's depressing as shit. I went to, what was it? Aquarium of the Pacific, I think it might have been.
Yeah, Long Beach.
Yeah. No, you know what? It was, I forgot what zoo it was. It might have been the Oakland Zoo. But I remember I had a realization at a certain moment where I was just looking at this gorilla and it was looking at me. And it was just like, help me. Like, it was like, this shit sucks. We pretty much put these animals in prison and just so we can look at them.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't know, because I like zoos because you actually get to see them in person and it's cool. But at the same time, you're seeing...
A little guilty?
Yeah, you feel guilty because we're literally not doing it. Like, I guess there's certain ways you could do it that might be more ethical. Like, the whole Blackfish. Did you ever see that documentary?
Blackfish?
Blackfish was about... I never watched it. I just read articles about it and everybody posted about it. It was the documentary about the SeaWorld orcas.
Really?
The killer whales. And it was about how they would get depressed, how they would get sick, how they're super smart. They have languages. They talk to each other.
Uh-huh.
And they say, I don't know if they say their mind goes higher than ours in IQ.
Really?
But we just that's the thing, is we look at animals as different than us because they don't talk and they don't need things. They don't have items. The crazy thing about, I heard about penguins, when they want to mate with a woman or they want, to become whatever, become bonded, he'll get her a little pebble and give it to her. Like, he proposes.
Really?
And when I heard about that, I was like, holy shit. Like, that's real. Like, all of a sudden you see the penguin as a real thing, as not just this bird, but oh my god, that thing has feelings.
Yeah.
And it's going on a beach looking for the best pebble to give this bitch, Respectfully to all the penguins out there. But it's like we shut off. Like, could you imagine if fish screamed and said no when you were catching them? If you were reeling in a fish and it would jump, when they jump out of the water, if it was like, stop! No! That hurts! It's in my mouth! And then you saw other fish, raise their head up, like, Daddy!
You would put it back.
No one would fish. If we're just like, when they're sitting there on the ground and they're like,
Yeah, they just take those sighs of breath going, it's true, I'm done.
Yeah. What if they were just screaming and crying and they're just like, why? Please don't do this. You don't have to do this. I got money. I got money back in the pond. If you just put me back in the pond, I'll go get the money. You know? If they did that, we would look at them a lot different if we could just talk to them. And it's crazy to say that, like that sounds ridiculous, but it's true. You can talk. What the fuck am I saying? You can't talk to animals. Now my brain's all messed up. I'm losing it. But really, they have languages. They have their own systems. Bees are more fucking complex than we are when it comes to how they're all set up and everything. Their structures and everything a lot better than any engineers ever done here. But it's we lose compassion for things we don't understand and can't relate to us. The reason why people like music so much and the reason why people like specific songs is because part of those songs, the lyrics relate to them. Baby, can't let you go. Everybody relates to that because you just, it matters to you. It's relatable, you know. That's why things we can relate to when someone goes through a breakup, you're like, oh man, I'm sorry. Or, you know, if someone loses someone, you know, someone passes away, I'm so sorry. I know how it was when I lost my grandma, blah, blah, blah. That kind of situation, because we relate to it. We don't relate to animals. At least we don't relate to, you know, the animals that are in cages. You know, like, what's the difference between a dog at the pound and a dog or a lion at the zoo? Because the lion has some cool African tribal music playing out of a speaker in their cage is different because they got bushes painted in the back.
Yeah.
But I think people feel compassion, you know, if they show a lion in a cage on TV, it's like, come now to the San Diego Zoo. Dun, 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 dun. I don't know why I did it under the sea, but when you see dogs in cages on TV, in the arms of the angels.
I know, right?
Like, what's her name? Sarah
McLachlan?
She's like, call now and you can save one of these dogs. Why aren't we saving the lions? You know?
So here's a question that I like what you said. Do you think as a society we're going to be able to get over this hump if we can tap into how and why animals do what they do? Because like you said, so like bees, I mean, they create these amazing things, and all we speculate is what we're trying to assume, why they've built it, why there's, you know, corners, why, you know, all this stuff. We're just assuming. But the fact of the matter is, imagine if we were to...
What if bees are just like, we just like the way that shit looks?
No, imagine if we were able to communicate with them and then figure out, and they're like, oh yeah, well, you know, in their language, yeah, mathematically, E, blah, 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 and they give you all these formulas.
That we could apply to our life.
And then we go, holy shit, we never even thought of that way. And then imagine every species on the planet has something that they've created out of nothing to survive and to keep reproducing. Imagine if we were able to tap into all that.
Well, there's monkeys that, you know, with sticks, they build tools. There's so much stuff. But I think the thing, if we could learn something, I like I'm doing the president finger right now. If we could learn something, American people, if we could learn something from animals that would help us as a species, would be to be objective. But that's not in our nature. We're naturally emotional. We're naturally jealous. We're naturally selfish.
I think that's what separates us.
Yeah. People always say, oh, it's our intelligence that separates us from animals. No, it's that we're jealous. It's that we're insecure. Because probably everything great that's ever been accomplished, like making weapons and everything, and, you know, which led to bombs, which led to wars and everything was done out of insecurity. If you think about that, we created the first weapon because we were afraid. You know, whether it was a caveman with a stick and a spear, we made it because we were afraid, you know, because it was an insecurity, a physical one, a literal one, that we were insecure. We weren't secure around these lions or whatever was trying, these saber-tooth tigers.
No, it's true, because, I mean, I guess, let's say we take the lion, and he'll freaking fight whoever imposes. And he might not have tools, he might not have weapons. And let's say the other person has a weapon, like let's say a human that's poaching him, he's still going to try to attack him, even though he knows he probably doesn't have a chance. But I think that that's what you're talking about, is they just have that fight or flight. We have flight or fight, but then we have that third component that sort of blurs everything else, which
Critical
is
thinking.
Just emotion.
Yeah.
Everything starts to come up. You become irrational. You become too emotional. You know, it's just very fascinating, and that's very true. That's why I definitely do think we've created all these weapons and we create all these materialistic stuff is to compensate for our security.
I always try to think about, especially, we didn't really plug our stuff this episode about m80roller.com. You can check it out here. evanlopez.com. You can check it out here for music and video production. With music, a lot of times I try to see, with anything in general, do we still build everything out of fear of failure? Or is it the strive for success? That's what I always wonder about, because sometimes when I'm writing music or you know, making a beat or mixing or whatever, and I'm usually plagued by the fear that this is going to sound bad. So a lot of times I'll erase things, I'll rewrite, I'll re-record so many times because I'm afraid of it being bad, you know? And I'm sure, but that fear, that insecurity, that's why I spoke on the first podcast but didn't really get into it. No one wants to be happy. Happiness sucks, because happiness isn't, you're going to feel complacent in happiness, in a literal sense of you're just happy, everything works, you're fine. It's basically being comfortable. When you're comfortable all the time, you're not going to push yourself to the limits, you know? That goes back to the trust fund baby, you know, the kids who just have everything. If you're comfortable, there's no need to survive. That goes into, you know, when people talk about welfare and they talk about Section 8 and all these programs, a lot of times people say the government made welfare to keep the lower class people like a baby,
dependent,
like a baby with a pacifier in their mouth, because hey, if someone's getting a steady check every month and they just get to live in their Section 8 apartment, they're just stagnant, you know, they're just staying there, you know. And they say that's the way they did it on purpose. That's a very clever way.
No, it is. I mean, if
it's
that's
a super
true,
runaround.
I can't imagine.
But, you know, because people say, well, why would they do that? Because they're getting all that tax write-off of Section 8. Everybody, someone's making money. Welfare wasn't made to help
everyone's
people.
Making money.
People always think welfare and all this, you know, Costco now accepts welfare in Section 8. The reason why, they're making money. They're making money off, you know, tax cuts, everything. When you have a big company like that, you're making money off tax cuts. And
there's always a reason why things aren't rewritten, things aren't shut down, things aren't, you know, refreshed. Is the simple fact that if the system is broken, there's a reason why.
Yeah.
It's the incentive is there for a certain party, and if it didn't truly benefit anyone, it would be off.
Yeah.
It would be shut down, or it would be rewritten.
That's what's crazy. Is that everything, going back to things rewritten. I'm sure when you made the M80 roller, maybe you nailed it on the first time. Did you nail the design on the first time?
Well, when I bumped into this material, the foam material, that's our M80 Groove patented design.
Patented, remember that.
That right there, that was a first home run right from the get-go. Leading up to it was several attempts, several failures trying to basically come up with different materials. But once I landed that material, it was a home run from that one and on. Which, again, yes, it is luck, and I think that it is all about timing. But one thing that I still hold true to justify success in the long haul is that as long as your eyes are focused on the prize, opportunities are always spinning around you. Some of them you grab, some of them you don't, some of them you walk up to, some of them you don't.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the person that is always paying attention to their surroundings that they'll notice something and go, oh, I got to go pay attention to that. So again, I've sort of taught myself that I walk throughout life paying attention to every little thing.
That's, go ahead.
So, I mean, for example, let's say a car passes by and he has a sticker with a website on it. I always make it a point to look up that website because you never know who you run into. And that's the
true.
Same fact for people that you talk to. Like, let's say if you're at a gathering, let's say if you're at a gym, wherever you're at, when you talk to someone, I feel like 1 out of every 2 people have something or know someone that has something that you need. And the great part about it is that's why they say networking is key.
Yeah.
It's who you know.
It's true. Especially in any kind of industry where you're trying to create a business or art, a lot of times, especially even the movie industry, there's so much about who you know, how so-and-so got in this role. So it's crazy. Sometimes I think people are on the right path for networking, but then they churn it into socializing. You ever notice that? That some people, I'm going out to this place to network, but they really just end up getting drunk and talking to people about bullshit. I've done that a lot, not getting drunk and just, I've done that. I went through some crazy college dates. Matt's been there. Do you remember that time where, I don't even know if I should say this, I tried drinking a handle of vodka? Do you remember that? At my apartment in Ventura? You came to a party.
Did I really?
You came to you must not remember it. I might have tried to drink a handle of vodka, got pretty far on it. And this is what happens when a homeschooled kid goes to college. I'm a product of that unbalanced living. But I tried drinking it. I got pretty far down. I won't say I got halfway. Got to the point where I was
gives me chills.
Throwing up spaghetti in the bathroom on the floor. And I remember as I'm going into this weird state of losing all my motor skills, I open the door. I reach for it going, open the door. And all I say to a person in the hallway, get Matt Alaya.
I remember that.
Yeah. Get Matt Alaya.
You know when you said pasta, immediately I think of it. What was your roommate's name?
Eric. He used to always make pasta.
I would just stare at him. Obviously, I think I was drunk, but I would just stare at him with my mouth open. We would be in the kitchen making his concoction sauce. And I was just like, what the hell are you putting in there? Why would he? Oh. And then he goes, just wait.
Dude.
He would stir it. Once he was done, he gave me a little spoonful. And I remember after that day, I carried it back to CSUN,
Really?
Cal State Northridge, when I swam for them. So what I ended up doing was every Wednesday they had the premiere show for South Park. And I'm a big South Park fan.
Yeah.
And all my teammates know that. So basically what I would do is I would host a pasta party / South Park party every Wednesday night. And it literally started off with just us roommates. And it literally grew to our whole swim team.
Wow.
And every night I would go to the 99-cent store, buy a shitload of pasta and a shitload of canned, sauce. Because for $1 each, you can't beat that.
Yeah.
And I would make these, I had to keep buying these big boiling pots to make the pasta and the sauce, and I kept the same recipe, and everyone would say the same thing.
Yeah.
That is the best sauce I've ever had.
It's crazy. It was spicy. It was a seasoning that he put.
Was it the cayenne pepper sauce too? Cayenne?
Yeah, cayenne pepper, and butter. Yeah, and
garlic powder, garlic sauce, powder, something like that.
But there was some secret sauce. But I remember the first time he made it, I was blown away. Him and I would eat that 2-3 times a week because we swam for Ventura College. Shout out to the Pirates.
Pirates.
And we would swim 2 times a day, weightlift in the morning at 5 in the morning. And
you have to feed yourself. You
so
have to
we
fuel
would
yourself.
we would eat this pasta, just like spoonfuls that were entire bowls, just and he used to make it, and he used to love making it. Yeah, that was amazing. But
now that you remind me, I do remember, because all of a sudden I'm just walking around aimlessly in your apartment, and this girl comes up to me and goes, "Evan needs you," and it was funny. It was almost like that child of yours needing you. You're like, where is he? Where is he? I'm all worried, and then I go in there and I'm like, hey, what's up? And I do remember you're just like, reaching.
I think I lost speech at that point.
You're like, savior.
Yeah, I remember I was losing everything. It's like when you're in a fighter jet and you're like going down and you just gotta press that ejection button, and it's like, and mine just said Matalaya, because you're probably the only person there. I mean, I knew some people from high school, but you're the only person there that I knew. And I just hit that Matalaya button, and I was like, get me out of here. So I knew. It's like, in the Star Wars, when Luke Skywalker sees Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he's like, go to the Dagobah system. He's like, Ben. I was just like, Matt, I remember seeing you. And I was just like, save
You see the
me.
silhouette around me? Matt,
Yeah.
Is that you?
Yeah, you were like Jesus. Like, there was just like, oh. And I don't remember anything from that night. I remember them telling me the next day that I threw up so much, I was dry heaving. And part of the reason why I think we got so messed up, there was literally a room full of sick people in my room. I woke up with the Venezuelan exchange students in the bed with me, one a guy and one a girl, and I was like, last night got wild. And I remember they were going around the party. That's what's always crazy about having exchange students in your college. They do some weird shit in their country when everybody gets drunk. So what these Venezuelan exchange students were doing, shout out to Catherine and Aaron, they were shaking people's heads. So you would take the shot, get drunk, and they would shake your head crazy. Like,
they do that a lot in Mexico.
Really? And I remember when they did it to me, I was like, oh, that didn't feel good at all. You guys do that for fun?
Yeah,
That's for pleasure? But I just remember it got me so sick with the combination of this. I can't blame it all on that. It had to do a lot with the vodka.
Yeah.
But even to this day, I still don't like vodka. I remember vodka was the first thing I ever drank when I actually got drunk. I think it was allegedly might have been high school. And I remember the only drinking... I remember it was a group of us went to the movies, and then someone was like, my parents aren't home, and then we have a pool, so we went over there. And I remember taking shots, double shots of vodka. And I remember that the only drinking I had known of, and again, this comes from being sheltered, I had only known from movies of people just taking shots. Like, yeah, woo. So I didn't know with shots or with alcohol that there was a limit. I just thought you could keep drinking and drinking and drinking, and the night got more fun, But it didn't work out that way at all. Like, I remember I did a backflip naked into a pool or something crazy. Like,
really?
I remember thinking I was in a dreamlike state. It was the first time being drunk, so I didn't know what was happening. So I didn't know I would have repercussions for my actions. So I was just doing whatever. It was crazy, man.
It's almost like it's true. They call it liquid courage. And it is true in every sense. Because that's when you can talk to girls. That's when you can do things that you never thought you could. That's when ugly people start looking better.
Yeah, and I'm against the liquid courage, because now when I perform, if I do a show or something, completely sober. I don't even really drink anymore at all. But I don't like...
How often do you drink right now? As far as when I say drink, I don't mean going and getting trashed. I mean, literally, what does your week look like?
I don't drink at all during the weeks. I could go a couple months without even sipping alcohol.
Really?
And if I do have it, I'll have a couple beers. I get trashed one time a year pretty much, and that's after the Dan Tran was a friend of mine who passed away. They have a Dan Tran memorial swim meet for the high school team now.
Oh yeah, in Quartz Hill, right?
Yeah, it used to be called Golden League Finals, but they changed it to the Dan Tran Memorial. So what they did is they started having alumni relays, where people who were alumni come back and do a couple relays in memory of Dan. So everybody flies in, that core group of people that I swam with and went to high school with, that we all stayed really good friends. We all show up there, and it's like you have no excuse. You can't not get drunk with them. Everybody's buying shots and pictures.
Yeah,
and
everyone's just having a good time.
Yeah, and everybody, if you try to say, "Oh, I'm sorry," and they're like, "You pussy, go put your vagina at home." Your vagina. Yeah, but that's pretty much the one time a year. Honestly, I think the last time I got drunk was at that meet or after that meet, and the time before that was the year before at that meet. So
why do you find yourself not drinking?
I can't deal with the hangovers, man. I think, people don't realize I literally work, when I'm working construction. I work construction to be able to buy laptops, buy microphones, buy whatever I need to produce. And it's getting to the point where I pretty much have everything except that new Mac Pro and Thunderbolt display I got to buy. But I work construction to be able to fund that. Then when I get done with construction, I, will start mixing music, start making beats, start doing that, updating the site, performing on the weekends. There's no time off. And I think now I can't recover the way I used to be able to with drinking. So I just don't even do it because it's just going to take me. First off, I'm so, all my money is invested in music and invested in what I'm trying to do. So I can't go out and spend so much money and then, I don't know. I can't deal with hangovers anymore. That's pretty much it.
No, the reason why I ask those questions is because I've always studied that pattern in people. Is what makes people drink to the point that, for example, if I were to go to the bar, the only time I go to the bar is with a group of friends. Again, I haven't hung out with them in a while, and I'm just tagging along. Do I want to? No, but I'm gonna go because I'm gonna have fun with my friends, and no matter where we are, we're gonna have fun. But I sit there and I look at people because I feel like most of these people, this is their routine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As far especially dive bars, there's literally people that this is their core group of friends. This is their routine, meaning they wake up hating what they're about to do till 4 p.m. They're juiced because they're about to hit the bar to play pool, hang out with friends, drink. And I sit there and I'm like, again, is that bad? No, I feel like whatever is you're happy. But I think what separates that and what you're saying, which I fall into the same category now, is that you know the repercussions the next day in the sense that you're going to be groggy, you're going to be tired, and might have a headache, you might have a hangover, whatever the symptoms is. And it's almost like my swim coach first told me in college is...
This is Barry
Schreifels, make sure that what you do in life doesn't affect what you're trying to achieve. So for example, if I go get hammered and I have a swim practice in the morning and I can't practice hard because I drank too much, then guess what? That is impacting me in a negative way. It's preventing me from doing what my goal is. So going back to that is, it makes sense why you wouldn't drink, because you have to be sharp in the morning. You know that you're dealing with construction. With construction, it's safety is number one.
Yeah.
Also, too, how miserable would it be to work physically while being hungover, which...
We've done that.
And to tell you the truth, it's probably one of the most miserable things that you can do. Yeah. And then on top of that, let's say you're done with work, you might have to nap because you don't have the energy to now divert it to your music.
Yeah, and it's different with music, I think. I think with anything that you're trying to create something, you need all your cylinders. You need all... What is it, your faculties, they call it? You need everything up here. And that's why sometimes, even when I finish construction, I'll come home if it's been a hard day of demo where I was just breaking up shit and just moving and everything, and I'm just worn out. I can't even do music, even though it's not physical. My brain is just like everything's tired.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you just have to make sure your mind is ready to work. And a lot of times if you're hungover, even if you're not doing something physical, your mind still isn't in a place where it's, you know, all the juices are flowing and everything. That's why when you get a good night of sleep, you wake up and you're good, you're ready to go. That's like last night, people don't know, Matt broke down. You know, he drives from 2 hours away to come do this, and we were contemplating doing it at 11 last night we were going to start. The first one we did, we didn't start till 11:30 or something. We didn't go to bed till like 4 or 3.
I feel like 4.
And then we woke up and did another one. But we decided last night to just do it today in the morning. It's about 6 a.m. right now. No, I'm just kidding. It's like 10:27. Because last night we were going to be fried.
Yeah.
You know? And that's kind of the thing, is like, nah, let's just wake up. Let's just get a good night's sleep.
Go back to quality. And that's, I think, that what separates success from not success is maintaining quality, not just doing random shit.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, you know, I wanted to do it because I guess I was so irritated that, you know, I cut out of the warehouse early so I can make it, blah, blah. I was going to drop my dad off at their place. I was going to drive over here, and that shit happens. And, you know, again, I'm a very passionate person, so I find myself sometimes getting a little bit, you know, very pissed.
Yeah.
So, again, part of me is just, you know, I quiet down and I go, you know what? This is the shit that we got dealt with. We can't control it.
Yeah.
The great part about it is I can still wake up early in the morning and we can shoot one. It's not like the whole weekend is wasted.
That's a smart choice. What's crazy, I always study, being from a boxing background, people like Bernard Hopkins. And he's one of the examples of a fighter who nailed it perfectly how to train. And just like you said, quality over quantity, he knew how many times a week he should be training. He listened to his body. And that's kind of like anything you do. If you go to the gym 7 days a week, you're going to be burnt out. Your body's not going to recover properly. And I think that's like last night, being like, nah, I know, or, you know, sometimes you got to get outside your head and be like, nah, you really got to look at it objectively and be like, nah, we're going to get a better quality podcast if we do it in the morning, you know, the content. And maybe not. Maybe we would have said some funny ass shit last night. And maybe we're boring you with this one. But it's like that thing, you know, you don't overtrain. You need to allow yourself to take vacations. And that's like back when we were talking about, you know, going to Puerto Rico. You know, it's important. I went on a 10-day vacation in Puerto Rico. Might have talked about this already, but it's important to shut your mind off. And instead of, you know, you were rushed from the warehouse and you had so much stuff in your head, you're already irritated. Sometimes you just got to shut it down. You know, it's just like a laptop. You just got to shut it down, let it rest for a night, then you can start the next day, you know?
Yeah, and I remember on the car drive back, again, utilizing my time, I was like, one of my things on my bucket list is almost volunteering, giving back, paying it forward, almost that mentality. So I started to like dive into that, because I mean, my ultimate goal is to give my time on Sundays. And I don't know where that's going to go. If that's helping kids as being a mentor, if that's helping people learn how to read, if that's, you know, cleaning trash in our waterways that lead to the ocean. It's almost like I've always had that in the back of my mind, and I'm getting closer to, again, tackling the things that I want to tackle. So I started to research that on my way up, and it was just neat because, again, it just made me realize, you know, boom, if I didn't have this commute, I wouldn't have been looking on my phone trying to find this. So it's almost like, boom, I already created an initiative. You know, by the end of next week, I'll be able to find something that I can start at least getting my feet wet.
It's like that song, God bless the broken road that led you to me, you know? Sometimes a lot of tragedy kind of lead you to what you really want to do.
Well, I mean, like what you said earlier, I feel like it's true is there's always struggle, there's always bad, but from there it stems so much power and emotion from art to music to just passion in general.
Yeah.
But it's almost like every bad, there's a good. And sometimes I think that in the midst of that thought, you feel guilty because you should be a little bit more sad, or you should be like, maybe I'm just distracting myself. But in reality, from every bad stems good.
Yeah, I always have a hard time when people are dealing with guilt for, bad situations that they went through. And I look at it as always, people might not know this, but I lost a brother. Matt was there when it happened. And I dealt with a lot of weird survivor's guilt and all this different kind of guilt. So when I see someone who's dealing with guilt when they lost somebody, I always say the main thing you need to do is focus on getting yourself better. No matter what, you can't let negative things pop in your head at all. Whether, I always, when people do feel guilty about feeling happy, there's certain times where people, I've been helping someone who's going through grieving, and they feel bad that they're laughing, after just having something tragic happen a couple of days before. And you kind of have to remind them and tell people, look, whatever you're going through, the main job of you as an individual is to get to a place where you're happy, to be good with the situation, to be productive. Because if you dwell too much on negative, it can ruin your life. There's some people who don't bounce back from tragedy.
Yeah, it's scary.
It's sad because it's such a real thing. Being negative and being positive, it's literally two roads, and they might be in the same direction. But look, you start being negative, you go off your course even a half inch this way. When you finally get to that point 15 years later, you're fucking 5 miles away from happiness. You're so far off because you just been keep going down just a little bit and, letting these thoughts get to you. You're missing all these good opportunities and all this happiness. And, if you would have went and did this. So I always try to tell people, don't focus on the negative. If you're going through a loss or a tragedy, you do need to distract yourself. And when negative stuff does come to your head, you need to just push it out and focus on the bright side. So whenever there is a negative situation, whether it be a car breaking down, whether it be, last night, I know first world problems, my internet got disconnected. But I use that usually a lot of times. The internet distracts me from making music or something. But I made just from scratch a whole new beat last night that I'm going to use. And
nice.
And sometimes, that's why I liked living in Puerto Rico. A lot of the places I lived didn't have internet. So a lot of times I was able to shut so much noise off. And I think that's important. Just like you were broke down, it kind of stopped the bzzz. Because if you're kind of focused on working all day, you're focused on this, all right, I finished this, now I need to go here. And all of a sudden, oh shit, what just happened?
It's almost like an ant. If you take them away from the line of production, it's like,
yeah,
it just doesn't know what to do.
It kind of makes you stop and look around, and you're like, oh. And then you start thinking, I got this free time. That's why sometimes that's a blessing, where you're forced to just listen to yourself. You have nothing else you can possibly do but just sit there when you're broke down in your car. And look, it made you figure out something that was great that you want to do.
Exactly.
I've had that happen. That's why sometimes I hate fucking flying. But when you get on a plane, there's nothing else you could do. You can't text people. So you can start writing stuff. You can start figuring out stuff you want to do. And it's those kind of situations that are always, you get stuff done because you don't distract yourself. You kind of get out of the way of yourself and your bee-like thinking of just going through, we're creatures of habit. And when we break that habit and it stops automatically, that's why you hear people going to jail. They became these great readers. They became really intelligent people that, found God or whatever it is, because they had all this free time just to develop. It's kind of crazy.
No, it is. No, I agree 100%. I think that obviously the internet is now our main distraction. Because now our phones are actual computers. Back in the day, they were very limited. So now you can distract yourself 24/7. And I definitely do think that there's good and bad distractions.
Yeah.
And, I think that if you find yourself constantly running away from a problem, then I think that's bad. I think there has to be a sense that you have to face it. You have to go through the grief. And then you have to, again, slowly accept it.
Yeah.
And then I think after the grieving process, then you can distract yourself. I think that that's important. But I think not going through any grief,
Yeah.
I don't think that that's healthy.
Yeah.
And I mean, going back to your brother Sean, I went, what year was that?
2003.
2003. So 2003 to about 2006 or 7. I went through a dark period of my life that thoughts were negative. It's almost that, how military people that come home from war, they have
PTSD.
that. Yeah. I literally had that. I mean, I remember every time I would sit down, I would have flashbacks of that night.
Yeah.
And it got to a point that's why I couldn't really study much. I couldn't sit in class. I couldn't do anything. I found myself moving because it was the only thing that would prevent those images.
Yeah.
And again, I just found myself running. And literally, I finally hit one of my low points in college. And I finally go, I need help. So I found a therapist at school, and I started going to her. And it was probably one of the hardest thing I've ever done, because you sit there and you have to relive everything, but you can't rush through it. You have to literally go nice and slow, because I went so many years running away from it.
Yeah.
That it was almost like you have to go now back, relive it all,
Yeah.
and then slowly go through the grieving, and then move on. But I kid you not, I remember it was like a light switch. After like 2 or 3 months working with her every week, really, really intense, I literally went to her and I go, it's gone.
Wow.
Like literally, I remember just completely like nothing. And it was almost like now the good thoughts came, not the bad thoughts. So I literally look at her and I literally just gave her a big hug, because I was just like,
wow.
It's almost like that second opportunity in life, because I got to a point that I literally convinced myself that, okay, this is a scar that people talk about.
Yeah.
And it's not going to go away.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, this sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm only 24, 25 years old, and I have to live for the rest of my life like this.
Yeah.
So, again, I think that everything happens for a reason, but the biggest thing that I've learned throughout my life is reaching out for help.
Yeah.
I think that society inclines that men don't have weakness.
Yeah.
We don't reach out. We don't do this. We don't do that. And all I got to say is, if you're a male, if you need help, reach out.
Yeah.
Don't ever think that. And it's not like you have to reach out to your core group of friends that you feel like you're not going to show your masculinity. Why not go online and Google, counseling in your area, and at least you have something, and you don't have to let anyone know you're doing it, because it's one of those things that you can just show up for an hour, you leave, and no one ever knows where you were at. But I think that everything starts somewhere. Also, at the same time, some people don't like certain things. So, if people don't like counseling, don't like therapy, then you find another alternative. But the fact of the matter is, there's going to be something out there to help each person. And the whole purpose of life is to try to find your happiness. So if your happiness is going back to your normal state of mind, being able to think positively, not have negative images, then that should be your pursuit. But if you're still caught in the rut, and then you find yourself using heavy drugs to prevent you from thinking, or heavy drinking, the sad part is every morning you wake up, it's the same shit.
That's the quote my dad says all the time about, think about, drugs and alcohol. When you're drinking or, doing drugs or whatever, and man, there was years where it was dark for me and everything, painkillers and everything like that. It kind of numbs things for you, and it's like, oh, I can breathe for a little bit. And alcohol, same thing. It just kind of numbs you, and I think, it just makes you forget for that moment. But not only are those problems still going to be there, they're going to be worse because now you're dealing with the hangover. Now you're dealing with feeling tired. You have all these toxins in your body. And you, of course, being a fitness guru, know the benefits for your mood that exercising, healthy eating, and a healthy lifestyle have on your mentality and your demeanor. And, working out alone can make you happy. So if your body's full of toxins and you're tired, you're not getting sleep because you're doing this, you're doing uppers, you're doing downers, all this crazy combination, you're taking pills during the day and then you're taking NyQuil at night to sleep, all this vicious cycle of just trying to maintain, it slowly wears you down. So that's, when we're talking about this path of you can keep going straight and then you can veer off, and then 10 years later you're in a fucking different world than where you should have been. It's making those healthy choices of how you're going to grieve and how you're going to deal with things. I went through a period, after my brother passed away, of doing bad things, just that quick fix, which ultimately, I got in so many fights because I just had so much anger that I wasn't dealing with, and I was just, it would come out. And there's years where people didn't want to drink with me because they knew I would get crazy because there was just this, and they didn't know what it was. They thought it was just this Evan's crazy when he's drunk,
Correct.
But they didn't know that it wasn't that Evan was crazy when he's drunk. Evan just would lose his control over that anger inside, and it would come out misplaced because, if you have energy, no matter what, just like when a fucking lightning hits someone, the energy has to come out. You always hear about it blowing someone's leg out. The energy has to come out, and it's going to come out no matter what. For me, I realized, this is not helping me, doing all this bad stuff. I realized, first time I ever put up a punching bag was after my brother passed away. And that led me to boxing. And that led me to being able to physically let my anger out, not only let my anger out, but it let me get it out in bursts of like, oh, okay, you're just starting to deal with the anger, and you're actually physically, that's why it's silly, but they always tell you to take a pillow and earn a pillow, whatever, but it would help people. And, doing that, being boxing, and I never realized it, they always say you can count your stars going back, but you can never see the steps going forward or where you're going to end up. But I have so much, I guess you call it poetry. They were just rhymes that I would write. And that's what eventually led me to music, was I started finding peace and I started finding balance. And, like a therapist was writing, still is for me, There's tons of stuff I still write that'll never be in a song. But it lets me organize my thoughts. And for some reason, when I rhyme, it comes out right to me, So I always urge people, try to get that energy out, whether it's talking to a therapist, whether it's joining boxing, getting in something that's letting you get whatever it is out right. You don't have to, I always tell people, write music and record and do everything like no one's ever going to hear it, because that's when you're going to write some honest shit. You're gonna actually get the demons out. When I talk about, I always mention demons in music and everything. It's real. I'm really talking about stuff. It might be in a witty metaphor about, calling something a bitch. This bitch. A lot of times when I'm referring to a bitch in a song, this bitch ruining my life, blah, blah. I don't know if I ever actually said that. But I'm referring sometimes as a metaphor. This bitch, maybe this demon, this thing that has kept me up for years, that I've never been able to deal with or look it in the face. A lot of times I'm referring to different stuff. And I always urge people, write whatever's inside you. If you don't have a struggle, if there's nothing if you don't feel the need to write something, then it might not be for you. But if there's something inside you that hurts, or that you need to get out, or you feel like you're going to go crazy, then writing might be for you. That might be what you're meant to do, because it's what brings me back to my center. It's weird because it doesn't make sense Why does writing something on a paper and making it rhyme make me feel better? It's weird, right? You know?
No, and I think, what's so beautiful about you talking about all this is that, again, you kept on searching, and you weren't expecting anything.
Yeah.
Even though at times, again, you sit there and everyone goes through that victim stage that you're like, why me? Why this? Blah, blah. But I think it's just inclined in all of us that we have a little bit of that fighting in us.
Yeah.
That we're going, you know what? I'm not going to let this control me. I'm not going to let this bring me down.
Yeah.
That's why I stopped drinking. That's why I didn't, gravitate towards those heavy drugs. And that's why I started writing things down. And I think that's a perfect example is there a solution for everybody that everybody can follow? No. I think that every path is unique and different. But the fact of the matter is, like you said, if you like fitness, try fitness. Don't go alone, go in a group setting. So a perfect example is like a boot camp class.
Yeah.
That it's almost mindless in the sense that you have the instructor telling you what to do.
Yeah.
And then guess what? You're surrounded with like-minded people. Who knows who you can start conversing with and start a conversation that might lead up into a friendship, a relationship, whatever the case is. And let's say that doesn't work for you. Then try, if you still like fitness, try a different section in fitness. And if that doesn't help, then go towards the arts, go to creative, go to music. I feel like as long as you know what you like, you'll find that channel of going towards and then exploring it. And like what you said is writing things down and, using the imagery, using descriptive words, and just pouring your heart out onto the paper, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, when you hear that song and you listen to those words, you can feel that those are your words.
Yeah.
You can feel that it was true.
Yeah.
And you can feel that that person has been writing that song for a long time or has been investing all their time and energy and, like you said, scribbling, replacing words. It's almost like you wouldn't release that thought on paper unless you knew that it was ready.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the crazy part. That's why, for so long I dealt with wondering if I was really supposed to be doing music, because with, graduating from school and everything, people look at you like, wait, what are you doing? Why aren't you using your degree? Everybody wants to be a rapper, And it's like,
yeah,
I dealt with that so much of wondering, is this really for me? Because I'm objective a lot of times, man. I know how it looks to people when I tell them, oh, I do music. I know what they're looking at. I know that they're looking at me like, oh, That's why a lot of times I just hate having that conversation. But I know for a fact this is what's worked for me for years, is doing music. It's what actually makes me happy. Everything changes. People will say, if I have a couple nights where I got to record and write and just do the whole process, I'm happy. I'm just, my demeanor, my morale, everything's good. And I look at it, I weigh it. Which would I be happier doing? Would I be happy with a good job and, making great money and being secure with that? Yeah, I could. Maybe, but I know for a fact I couldn't live without writing, and so it's important for me to, and it was a great moment when I realized that I have no option but to do this, because this is what's going to make me happy. I think if I was working a regular job and doing that, I wouldn't be happy, because I wouldn't be doing what helps me, not saying I'm like this 1%er tortured artist, but I feel like music does something for me and it makes me balanced. It makes me who I am, And I'm sure it's the same thing with you with fitness. If you weren't working out and you weren't helping people with fitness, you probably wouldn't feel like, I guess the word I'm looking for is being conductive. You're not giving anything. You're not expressing yourself the right way if you weren't doing fitness. And that's how I feel about music.
No, and you hit up on a good point. I always use the word gut feeling. Is if what you're doing is right when you feel it.
Yeah.
And when it feels good.
Yeah.
then you get the outside voices, you get, the outside influences that will always throw a stick in between your spokes, will always, push you down, will always make you try to realize, are you sure? Are you, maybe you're just stereotypical young kid that wants to rebel. But if you were to talk to every successful person out there, from art, music to corporations, the fact of the matter is everyone stuck to their cards when they knew that this was it. And no one else has that feeling other than yourself. Yeah. And the reason why I say that is because that's what I found in training people, and that's what I found with M80. M80 is a perfect example that I'm going against big dogs. And when I say big dogs, is we're talking about multi-million-dollar companies that are sold all over the world. I'm in a saturated market, which means everyone and their mother is coming up with foam rollers left and right. But for some reason, I knew that this had potential.
Yeah.
And if I didn't pursue it, and if I listened to the outside factors, M80 would be dead. But the reason why M80 keeps growing month after month, and it's just amazing the amount of leads I'm getting, and I've put $0 into advertisement. It's all been word of mouth and organic growth as far as social media and everything. That's when I know that
it's real.
It's real. At the end of the day, I'm glad I went through with it. I'm glad that I risked the money that I had. So at the end of the day, if you feel it, go for it. If you don't, move on.
I think that's a great way to end this podcast.
So what's our challenge?
Oh shit, we didn't even think of something, did we?
Top of my head, I think this is a perfect opportunity for everyone to take some time, sit down and reflect. If you're heading down the path you really want to, and if you know that there's a component or something in there that you've always wanted to do, write it down. Put it on your bathroom mirror so that every morning you see it. And if you end up accepting it after a couple days, follow through with that, and you will add a little bit more happiness and complexity to your life.
And if you send us a picture, you tweet us or Instagram a picture and tag us in it, we'll retweet it. Maybe we'll send you a little prize. Maybe we're going to be looking into shirts that are nice to wear.
We can work with you a little bit more in depth and maybe do a follow-up update. Let's say they did make the move to do something. Because again, what's the purpose of our podcast?
Our podcast?
Our podcast.
I don't know. Our purpose is to
just generate people to keep thinking, keep doing, and follow their aspirations, their dreams.
We pretty much just want to meet people like us. I guess that's what we're saying, is we want like-minded people, and we just want to either encourage others and be encouraged by other people. So visit m80roller.com. You can follow him on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at m80roller. You can check me out at evanlopez.com or on social media, Evan Lopez Music. That's on Twitter and Instagram at Evan Lopez Music. And if you want music or video production, hit me up. We could talk. If you want guidance with songwriting, we can help like that. Or we can just talk, hit me up.
DosLeosProductions.com.
We out.
Peace.
We're going to have a claw go across right there and end it.